What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Ben on Sports. Today's episode is another episode in the NASCAR weekly prediction and weekly preview series for the second race in the round of 12 playoffs. Let's get into it. Storylines going into Kansas. Ryan Blaney is locked into the next round after winning New Hampshire, the first driver to lock himself into uh, the round of 8. Looked pretty good doing it. Was the best car all day. After a little, some different strategies and stuff at play, Blaney um, ended up front winning that race. Again, very deserving. Penske showing some speed early in the round of 12. Penske always seems to show up in the playoffs, and even their car that's associated with them showed some speed in Josh Berry. He was probably the second best car, and then they probably had the third best car in Joey Logano. So Penske really, really showed up, got themselves in a much better position in the playoff picture, sans Austin Cindric. But Penske showing some early speed. And speaking of teams, is there some drama at JGR? There definitely seems to be. I don't think they have a lot that has come out of the building. I've been trying to find it, listen for it, but I haven't seen a whole lot. Obviously, Denny Hamlin and Ty Gibbs. Denny kind of wrecked Ty Gibbs. A lot of talk about, I'm racing for the playoffs. So was the teammate right behind me. We both can't pass you because you're holding us up. Yada yada yada. A lot of drama. And listen, you can say everybody is supposed to run their own race, and I would agree with you. But when it comes to situations like this, teams are going to do what teams are going to do. Like at some point, there's going to be an expectation where non-playoff drivers, especially when it's not a race for the win, are going to let their teammate playoff drivers through. Right? It happens all the time. I think it happens so much you don't even really see it all the time. It's not a surprise. I understand why Denny's upset. You still can't be wrecking your teammate, even if it was an accident. But there's definitely some drama at JGR that will be interesting to watch as the playoffs continue. And is Joey Logano going to do it again? He looked really, really good last week. He found his way through the round of 16, and now he's in the round of 12. Is Joey Logano going to do that thing where he sucks all year, wins a race to lock himself in, and then gets hot in the playoffs? Because Penske loves doing it. They've won the last 3 championships. Penske, I think, has adapted to this format, at least in the next-gen car, better than any other race team has. And it could mean good things for Joey Logano. I'm not going to say yes, he's ready to do it yet, but a good race at Kansas could have him well on his way, especially with how good Penske has been at Phoenix the last couple of years. Does the cut line stay at double digits? Right now, the cut line, as you're going to see later, is at double-digit points. Does it stay there? Does it continue to grow? Or will some of these guys and some of these cars start to get closer together? I still think everybody can point their way in if they have 2 good races back-to-back. Obviously, you can win your way in. I don't know. I think the cut line starts to tighten up. And not that it's not tight. Like, there's multiple drivers with a bad race that could be on the wrong side that are on the right side and vice versa. But it's just... I'll be interested to see. I feel like normally there's at least a couple drivers that are within single digits. And in a year where there's no really strong favorites and a lot of people, the race even feels closer together, I wouldn't be shocked to see the cut line continue to tighten up. And the biggest story in NASCAR, apparently there's a lot of talk behind the scenes going on about a 36 race full season championship format. And I'm in favor of that over this current system. I think this current system has led to more illegitimate champions than any other format in the history of NASCAR. Yes, is there an element of maybe we should have a playoffs? Yes, but why not do the chase? It makes no sense that all the guys that did so well in round 1 have to get their points reset, and people who barely made it in through the first round get to be right back. I think the format is stupid. I don't think it represents what motorsports are, what NASCAR should be. So I hope NASCAR does change the playoffs. There's elements I hope that they keep of this format. I don't want them to completely go back to the Winston Cup necessarily, because you should encourage people to be running up front the entire race. I don't hate stage points, although it has created some racing problems that maybe need to be addressed. There's a lot of things going on, but maybe NASCAR is going to finally change this format that a lot of people don't seem to like, and that some people are associating with some of the dropping TV ratings. I think there's a lot of reasons, a lot of things you can point to, but I definitely think the playoff format is part of that, and hopefully it's on its way to getting changed. History at Kansas. This is going to be the 8th next-gen race at Kansas. Obviously, Kurt Busch winning the first one. He's no longer racing. He had to retire essentially later that year after that wreck. But his teammate Bubba Wallace for 23XI won this race. So 23XI swept Kansas in 2022. Denny Hamlin, another Toyota, won the May 23 race. Tyler Reddick won the 2023 playoff race. And then finally, for the first time, Toyota did not win when Kyle Larson won in May of 2024. If you remember, that was that really, really close finish with Chris Buescher. That was less than a second. It was, or less than a tenth of a second. It was super, super close. It was literally maybe by 2 inches where Tyler Reddick beats Chris Buescher, or Kyle Larson beats Chris Buescher, that is. And Ford still does not have a win since that day at Kansas because Ross Chastain won the playoff race last year, and then Kyle Larson didn't just win, but dominated this race earlier this year in the spring. Best average finish, the only guy who's won multiple races, Kyle Larson at 6.3, Alex Bowman, his teammate, at 6.8, Denny Hamlin at 8.3, Christopher Bell at 9.3, and Ryan Blaney at 9.7. Certainly seems like this could be a Toyota-Chevy battle, but Ryan Blaney is fast, and RFK seems to be getting speed at these 1.5 miles the last couple of years, so maybe Ford is finally figuring out their 1.5 mile package. Most top fives in the 7 races here, Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson are tied with 5. Martin Truex Jr. and Christopher Bell are tied at 3. And then Bowman, Blaney, Chastain, Byron, and Wallace are all tied at 2 top 5 finishes in 7 races. I see a lot of Joe Gibbs Racing and a lot of Hendrick Motorsports in these stats. Maybe, just maybe, that means this week you'll see a lot of the normal names up front as well. And then most top 10s, 4 drivers tied at 6 top 10s in 7 races. Kyle Larson, Alex Bowman, Denny Hamlin, and Christopher Bell. I was just talking about Hendrick Motorsports and Joe Gibbs, 2 and 2. Martin Truex Jr. has 5. Obviously, again, he's retired. Chase Briscoe taking over for him. And then 2 drivers are tied at 4, and Ross Chastain and Chase Elliott. So pretty much all of these stats have 3 or 4 Hendrick drivers and 3 JGR drivers. And then there's the odd or extra driver here and there. So I'm definitely will be interested to see if the 2 top teams in NASCAR continue their reign at Kansas, because there's currently 6 of them in the playoffs, and all 6 of them, as it stands, are on the right side of the playoff cut line. Some of them narrowly, but if Hendrick Motorsports and JGR perform as well as they normally do at this track, you could see 6 you could see that cut line start to separate, and you could see a world where Hendrick and Joe Gibbs are looking good to both put 3 cars in the round of 8, taking up 75% of the spots. But there's some other names on this list, like a Ross Chastain, who won this race last year and has performed well, who is in the playoffs below the cut line currently. Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace have both won here with 23XI. They're below the cut line, so both of those drivers can throw a wrench into things. A lot of playoff drivers on these lists. It should definitely be an interesting one with a lot, and I expect to see a lot of the playoff drivers up front in this race. Speaking of that, my favorites to win Kansas, I've been talking about Hendrick and Joe Gibbs. They're 1-2. I think it's most likely that the winner comes from those 2 teams. Normally, I'd have 23XI second on this list, but Team Penske, after last week, they're convincing me, and Ryan Blaney has been so fast. I think Penske's getting better on the 1.5 miles. Blaney, I think, has had is routine consistency, whatever you want to say. Blaney has been the best Penske car in the next gen on 1.5 miles, and I think with how hot he is coming off of win, he could have some speed this week. And then RFK, Keselowski has flash speed, Buescher's flash speed, Priest flash speed. In fact, Buescher and Priest both had top 10s here in the spring. I think RFK Racing is there. I do like Trackhouse solely because of Chastain and Suarez's flash speed on these 1.5 miles. But I think RFK, all 3 of their drivers can be competitive, whereas Trackhouse, it could be only 1 or 2. individual driver rankings. Kyle Larson has to be the favorite in my eyes this week, followed by Denny Hamlin. Those two are 1-2 a lot. Christopher Bell, third. Ryan Blaney in fourth. And how interesting would it be if Ryan Blaney won? He'd be getting himself a lot of playoff points for the round of 8, and he would take at least two of the wins, meaning one less driver that can't win his race in, and one more driver that could fail to fall out on points or fail to advance on points. William Byron doesn't always have the best numbers here, but Hendrick has speed. William Byron's good. William Byron looked like he got some momentum last week. I think Byron shows up with some speed. Tyler Reddick has won here before. 23XI is fast here. I think Tyler Reddick, coming in desperate, has some speed. Alex Bowman has good stats here. Now, he doesn't always have top 3 speed. I think he's usually in that 4 to 7, 4 to 8 range, but still has the second best average finish in the next gen era at Kansas, and he's racing with the best team in NASCAR. Even though he's out of the playoffs, maybe he plays spoiler today. Chris Buescher almost won a race here in the 2024 season. Another guy that would love to play spoiler. Another guy that's fast at Kansas historically. I'm looking at Chris Buescher to have some speed this weekend for RFK. Ross Chastain, maybe arguably could be higher on this list. He literally won this exact playoff race last year. Had some momentum this year, but Ross Chastain scares me because he's been too up and down, too spotty for me to trust. Now, Ross Chastain, if you guys remember, the last mile-and-a-half race, which was a pretty long time ago, but the last mile-and-a-half race, Ross Chastain won, and I believe that was the Coca-Cola 600. I believe it's been that long since there's been a true mile-and-a-half race this season, and he won it. That was a couple months ago, though, and they've been up and down, which is why he's not higher. He just doesn't have the consistency, but I wouldn't be shocked at all to see him have top 5 speed. And then Joey Logano had a top 10 at Kansas, I think, in the spring. Maybe he was 11th. I actually think he was 11th. But this 22 team always seems to show up in the playoffs, even if they seem to find a way to manufacture good days and get points when they need it. Joey Logano, I think, will continue to do so and even potentially win this week. And one name, Chase Briscoe, he had a 4th place finish in the spring, but he didn't collect stage points. When he was with Stuart Haas Racing, again, not as good equipment. He wasn't very good at Kansas, but Martin Truex Jr. was really good at Kansas with Joe Gibbs Racing. So if he can build on the success that Joe Gibbs normally has here, maybe Chase Briscoe finds a good finish. But he only has one race in JGR equipment here, and his races with Stuart Haas Racing weren't as good, so I'm a little bit nervous to that's why I left Chase Briscoe off the list, just for some more proven commodities. Current playoff standings, Ryan Blaney locked in. No matter what, he will be in the round of 8, even if he DNFs the next 2 races. William Byron in second, plus 47, feeling pretty comfortable. Another solid race, and he should be okay. Kyle Larson, plus 41 in those same shoes. But really, anything less than 30, and I think you need to be careful, especially because anything can happen at the Roval, which is the last race here. The Roval is the cutoff. Anything can happen there. That race has a history of getting wacky, a history of wrecks and all that stuff. You don't want to have to point your way in there. So Christopher Bell, 29, looking for a good day. Denny Hamlin at plus 27, looking for a good day. If they just have like average top 10 days, they're going to feel comfortable. But they're both contenders to win this race, if we're being realistic. Joey Logano going from below the cut line to plus 24 and in 6th. I do think Joey Logano might be closer to the cut line after this race because I think there's guys behind him who might have better days. But if Joey Logano continues to improve and continues to find speed on these mile-and-a-half tracks and is typical playoff Joey Logano, he can get himself to 30 or more above the cut line. But if he also has some pretty bad performances on mile-and-a-half and some not so great races at Kansas. And if he does that, all the hard work they just did at New Hampshire could be undone this week. Chase Elliott needs a good run this week, only plus 14, and Chase Briscoe at plus 12. They're both kind of in the same boat. Individually, they have some success at Kansas, but not a lot. But their race teams and their teammates have been really, really fast and have a good history there. So they're probably going to hope they can use some of that information and get some stage points and gain some separation on the cut line. Chase Elliott, I think, was 8th or 9th on the cut line and moved up. Chase Briscoe was 6th. He's down in 8th. But he went from plus 10 to plus 12. So he still gained 2 points on the cut line, but he lost two positions where now he's in the transfer spot. Ross Chastain coming in minus 12. I would be willing to bet Ross Chastain would love a win. Who wouldn't love a win? Ross Chastain looking for a win and to move this cut line down one position, lock himself in. But really, as long as he has a good points day, he's still there. You just need to be in position by the time you get to Charlotte for the Roval race. You just need to be in position, and with the craziness there, you can take advantage. So Ross Chastain just wants to stay within shouting distance of this cut line. And really, nobody on the wrong side of the cut line is out of it. One good day, and they're right there. Austin Cindric, minus 19. That's not too far back. It probably will take 2 weeks to make up that point deficit, but still, you can still point your way in. You don't feel like you have to win the race. Same thing with Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace. And then, as I mentioned before, Ross Chastain, Tyler Reddick, and Bubba Wallace are all below the cut line right now. All three have wins in the next-gen car with their current teams that they're racing with at Kansas. So maybe one of those three get another win at Kansas and move themselves into the next round. I think this is going to be a very, very highly competitive race between playoff drivers because there's been so many of them that have won here, because there's so many that run well here. I think this could get really, really exciting and chippy between playoff drivers, and really everybody feels like they're still in it on points, right? And even though I said Larson and Byron are probably feeling okay on points, they have a bad week this week, and all that goes out the window. So Kansas, really important. It's a really competitive race. Lots of success for playoff drivers. And you don't want to be in a bad spot going into the Roval. You don't want to be in a tight points battle going into the Roval, because that race is the living embodiment of chaos. I'm going to stop real quick. Put down in the comments below who you guys think has the best days at Kansas. You see the standings. What four drivers do you think will be below the cutoff line heading into the Charlotte Roval based on what you know about the information I gave you, what you know about the drivers, and where you see the current playoff points? Who do you think is below the playoff cut line, and who do you think is above the playoff cut line after leaving Kansas? Also, go ahead and drop your race winner in the comments below. Somebody dropped in last week their race winner was Ryan Blaney, and they were correct. I believe that is the first time in the channel a commenter has predicted the correct race winner. So if you want to be second or if you want to be on that list, go ahead and put your name in the comments below. Moving on to the driver power rankings. Obviously, after such a fast race car and winning the race, Ryan Blaney moves up to first. Kyle Larson I have in second. He was pretty fast, moving into a track where he is probably the favorite. William Byron also had a good day. Those two are the best drivers on points right now, or the most comfortable drivers on points. They both have had some speed at New Hampshire. They both probably will have speed at Kansas. Denny Hamlin and Christopher Bell here in fourth and fifth. They're both in that 20 to 20 plus point range. Another good day at a track where both of them have had a lot of good days as in recent history. Denny Hamlin and Christopher Bell. They didn't have. I don't think either one had the days they were expecting when they went to New Hampshire. Bell still rebounded to a 6, but Joe Gibbs just seemed like it was a little bit slower than they normally are there. But they're still okay on points. They're going to another track JGR should be fast at. I feel good about those guys. Briscoe dropping from second to sixth, had a great first round, and he still has finished top 10 in every single race of the playoffs so far. But they were kind of lacking some speed, didn't qualify well, didn't get stage points in the first stage, got a couple of back-end stage points in the second stage. So not a great day for the 19 team. They're still good on points, but they're now in that transfer spot. When you're in that transfer spot, life gets tough. Joey Logano, I would put him higher, but he just had a fantastic day and is still only in sixth place. They did have speed. Another good race. Logano probably vaults into the top 5. Logano, though, it's always good when you can go from below the cut line to 2 drivers in between you and the cut line in one race. Chase Elliott, 7th. Just kind of an okay week last week. Just kind of the way a lot of Chase Elliott races have gone, in my opinion, this year. Needs a good week in Kansas this week and needs to be able to build some momentum, or it might not matter even if he does make it to the round of 8. Ross Chastain was kind of riding around those Joe Gibbs cars a lot, kind of the back end of the top 10. Um, I saw him in the top 5 a little bit. Had an okay day, still currently on the wrong side of the cut line. Tyler Reddick, even though he's not 10th in points, I have him 10th in my power rankings because I think out of the remaining 3 drivers, he's the best at Kansas. I think he has the best chance to win at Kansas, and I think he is probably the best road course racer going into the Roval of these 3 drivers. So whether it's points or winning a race, I think Tyler Reddick is best suited out of the drivers below the cut line. Just didn't have a good week last week like I was expecting out of 23XI. Bubba Wallace is in 11th because he was kind of in a similar boat with Tyler Reddick. It just didn't look like 23XI really had speed, and now they're both in a bad situation in points. And then Austin Cindric, I think, is probably the least likely driver to advance. I think this is the worst team that's all-around team. I'm not saying they can't advance, but I think Austin Cindric and the 2 are the worst all-around team that is left in the playoffs. It wasn't great at New Hampshire, despite all of the other cars that he is associated with having a lot of speed. And historically, he hasn't been good at Kansas. So he could be in dire straits after this week, and I think that's probably the most likely situation. Thank you, everybody, for coming out and listening. This episode is a little bit shorter than I think most of them are. Let me know if you like this more fast-paced, a little bit shorter episode than my normal ones. I also didn't go on a rant today talking about storylines, so that's a positive. Please like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. Don't forget to answer. You guys have homework questions. Don't forget to answer them in the comments below. A fantastic sports weekend. I said it at the end of my NFL episode earlier this week. Ryder Cup, great college football slate, a pretty good NFL slate. Last weekend of the MLB, just a great sports weekend. So find a couch and watch some sports. That is my recommendation for everybody out there. Thank you for taking time out of your days, your weeks, and your lives for listening. Take care of yourself. Take care of your family. Everybody stay safe out there. Peace out.